Welcome to the eCommerce Hustle Podcast, the go-to source for merchants, marketers, and entrepreneurs looking to build, market, and optimize their online stores. We dive into the nitty-gritty of e-commerce through the lenses of real, fast-growing, direct-to-consumer brands and industry experts to learn what it takes to succeed and scale to 7 figures and beyond. So get ready to take your brand to the next level with the eCommerce Hustle, brought to you by Sendlane.
Hello and welcome to Sendlane's eCommerce Hustle podcast. My name is Andrew Christison, Vice President of Strategic Partnerships, and this is...
I'm Dani Condon. I am VP of Marketing.
And we are pretty stoked about this nostalgic, loving brand that we have for you today, aren't we, Dani?
We are. They're bringing out all the vibes for us.
All the vibes. There's a special discussion on sentiments from early on in the pandemic that really made me sentimental and thoughtful in regards to where how far we've come over the last 2 years. And I'm excited. It's interesting to see how different companies have marketed during these time frames, have communicated with their customers, and whether or not they did it in a way that was empathetic to what was going on. So excited to run through a lot of this content.
We are. And should we tell them who we have on the podcast today?
Oh boy, should we?
We should. So today we have Joan Soda Co. And Joan Soda Co. is a leading craft soda manufacturer with a subsidiary dedicated to cannabis products. The company markets and distributes premium craft sodas under the Joan Soda and Lemon Cocoa brands, plus a variety of cannabis products under the Mary Jones brand. Jones's mainstream soda line is sold across North America in glass bottles, cans, and on fountains through traditional beverage outlets, restaurants, and alternative accounts. The company is headquartered in Seattle, Washington, and for more information, you can visit jonessoda.com, myjones.com, drinklemoncoco.com, or maryjonescannabis.com. We're really excited for our guest, Macy Antonello.
Woo! And we are so thrilled for our guest today, Macy Antonello. She is a passionate brand marketer with over 15 years of experience in the food and beverage industry. Currently, she serves as Vice President of Marketing at Joan Soda, where she is helping to lead the turnaround of a 25-year-old craft soda business. Prior to Joan's, Macy had various roles at both Starbucks and Frito-Lay. Having had the good fortune of working on mega brands like Cheetos and Frappuccino, yum. Macy loves to take the secret sauce of brands and help them scale for growth by making them relevant to today's consumers. So I am stoked on this background, Macy, and it is a wonderful pleasure to have you on. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Tell us how you got to Jones, and tell the audience a little bit about Joan Soda for those that may not have had the childhood nostalgia that I feel in my heart right now.
So first of all, thanks for having me. I love just talking about Jones and marketing and brands and all that good stuff. So I'm born and raised in Southern California. I got my MBA at this small university. You might have heard of it. It's called the University of Michigan. Got recruited to work for Frito-Lay, met my husband, who is a native Texan there. And we just really wanted to move back to the West Coast. And we ended up in Seattle because he didn't want to deal with LA traffic. He didn't want to live in the Bay Area because it was expensive even back then. And so we very quickly targeted Starbucks. And so I was at Starbucks for about 5 years. And then as I was trying to figure out what my next move was, I really decided, I have all this awesome classical packaged goods, discipline training between Frito-Lay and Starbucks. And I really thought I really wanted to have a much bigger impact. And so I started kind of looking for things where I would. And so I ended up at Jones, and we are a small company. Based actually ironically down the street from Starbucks. And we have been around for 25 years. We started in Canada and then eventually opened in the US, really, really strong craft soda. And the way I always talk about everything, as much as a brand and a product can be democratized, we believe we are. So all of the pictures that are on our labels, if you ever notice our black and white labels, are all consumer submitted photos. If you open the cap, you'll often find a fortune, and that's a consumer submitted saying. A lot of the flavor ideas come from consumers. So we really try to be, we really call ourselves the people's craft soda, and that's what we believe at the end of the day. Most people who remember us from before really think of us for our really bold flavors that are totally unconventional. So berry lemonade, green apple, those are usually the ones that people tell me that they remember from their youth. And so, yeah, that's kind of the story of Joan's and why I've been there. And so I've been there 2.5 years, and yeah, it's been like a totally awesome ride. And just really, I think, taking what people remember from their youth and really modernizing it for today and present day is really what that I've had the good fortune of doing, and just really making it relevant to, as you said in the beginning, today's consumers. So yeah, that's kind of the story.
Nice. I love that. So what is your favorite Jones soda flavor? Like if somebody's never tried Jones, what's the Jones that you're like, my goodness, you need to taste this on your lips?
So my very favorite is root beer, and it's actually a lot of people's favorite at Jones. As far as soda goes, I'm very like old school in that sense. So that's my favorite. My second favorite, I would say, is watermelon, which is harder to find, but if you can find it, it's awesome. And people will say it tastes like Jolly Rancher. So those are my top two for sure.
Oh, that makes sense. So
Yeah.
Mine is cream soda is my favorite. I'm actually I love your root beer, and I think that your root beer is superior to other root beer, but I love the cream soda so much that I can't even order anything else, even when I'm given choices. The choices, I'm always like, I got to come back to the cream soda. But I remember also when I was youthful, in sprightly, very, very athletic, much better looking. When the bottles changed from "Thanks for trying Jones" to the quotes, and I was telling Dani before our call, I actually used to collect the labels like a teenage psychopath, and so I've been a big Jones Soda fan for a long time, and I'm stoked on some of the initiatives that you're doing, and doing like user-generated content before user-generated content was even a thing anywhere else. I like the people's brand persona. So one of the things that Dani popped up was that you guys just recently launched an AR campaign with labels. Can you tell us a little bit more about this kind of next level of branding and experience that you're giving to your customers?
Thank you. Yeah. So, well, thank you for the compliment. I think there was a couple of things that were happening at the same time. So last year was actually our 25th. And as we were looking to celebrate our 25th, we were like, what could we do to kind of celebrate it? And, 2021 had its challenges with COVID and things like that. And so I think in the beauty of constraints and what you can't do, you really kind of think a little bit differently. And so really, as I thought about what makes Joan special, it really is our labels and the fact that everything's consumer generated. And when you really think about today's consumers and what they do, I mean, pictures were really cool back then, but now it's all about creating content. And so really taking the idea of augmented reality. And so I will just go describe for a second, in case your listeners don't know what augmented reality is. You can literally scan a label, take our Jones app, scan the label, and then what you'll see is the label come to life. And a story of anything. It could be a skateboarder doing a trick. It could be the one I'm holding right now is someone who's showing how she designs jewelry behind the scenes. And it's really about kind of elevating now what consumers are doing with content and putting it on our bottles. And so it was kind of like always wanting to do modernizing it, right? Like in terms of what people are doing now, bringing technology in, and yet really staying true to consumer generated things. And the best way we knew how to do it was really using user stuff as well, user content as well, and kind of telling these other consumer stories and what makes them them. So it's been a lot of fun kind of bringing it to life. Yeah.
It's super fun. And what do you guys use to drive that content? What is your source there to get people to participate?
I mean, we do a lot. I mean, we do a lot of influencer marketing. And so what we do is part of it is just reaching out to our existing community. And so we'll reach out, we have a database, and we'll email people and say, hey, we're collecting more content for we call it reel labels is what we call it. So more things for reel labels, please submit your content onto our gallery. So that's one way we do it. We also have an influencer team that works with lots of content creators. So obviously we always try to stick to ones that we've worked with before because we know they are a great fit with the business. And we also challenge people to look and expand beyond. So for example, we have a huge heritage with skateboarding and Tony Hawk and all these awesome people. But at the same time, this most recent round we just did, we also featured a 10-year-old martial arts person. Another thing we did recently was the professional scooter community, because that is kind of like how skateboarding was 20 plus years ago as well. So it's like we just try to do different things and try to find people with their own, pun intended, unique crafts as the people's craft soda. So yeah.
That's rad. That's rad. So can anybody submit a label?
Yes.
Or like, so if I had a dream in my heart, how do I make this happen?
We take submissions all the time. You can go to our website, joansoda.com, gallery, and just, you can submit pictures, you can submit videos, you can do it all. And we always encourage people to do it. So it's nothing earth-shattering or special. Like, please submit. We always want to reflect as many consumers as we can, for sure.
All right. Well, that's exciting. This is very exciting. And then also, so one of the things, so if you've submitted a photo and it wasn't selected, you could still like gift people with custom logos though. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we also have it. Thank you. We also have another business on our website. And it's called, so on our website, you can actually order normal soda, like just normal cream soda for you, Andrew. For me, it'd be root beer. And then you can also order My Jones on our My Jones website and create your own custom label. To your point, we have seen a lot of this, and I do this myself, to be honest with you guys. I order for grandparents gift with my kids. We are just about to launch a big graduation campaign, wedding favors. We do a lot in that space, but you can just order just whatever you want for fun. And we have had a lot of success, and that part of our business has been growing a lot. And we're hoping to grow it even more now that we're back to meeting one another and being more face to face. We're hoping that business grows more because, yeah, I think we all miss being around each other. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
100%. Cheersing a little Jones craft soda. Is that what you're saying?
Totally. Like people that. Like wedding favors, bachelorette party, baby showers. A lot of people do. They'll say, get for a baby reveal. Like that's a pretty common thing too. So we do a lot of that. Birthdays. Yeah. So I'd highly recommend it to everybody. And then we've even done custom things too for businesses if they want to do like a Christmas party favor. For sure.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you guys have such innovative marketing and you're so creative.
Thank you.
What have you guys found in terms of challenges? What is hard for you when you're thinking about how you market?
I think I don't really want to use this because I feel like it's the same answer everybody gives, but it really is the truth. The supply chain part of it has been really, really hard. I think in terms of like, you might have a great idea, but being able to execute, I think has been hard. And I think also just being able to get things in market and have the timing work out exactly the way you think has been just harder, I think. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. I think especially in e-com tied to supply chain, it just costs a lot to ship glass and soda. Like it's just expensive. So that's another piece that I wish people are so used to a very specific company, retailer sending things within 2 days. And it's just different for us. So, I mean, I think that's another, just a challenge and a hurdle we can constantly, are trying to meet and figure out. But I would say on the positive side, we also take a lot of pride in the fact that we're very nimble as a company and as an organization. And so I think we do a pretty good job, better than most, and be able to react quickly to most things in life. And so it's good, but it's hard at the same time. But I often tell people.
No, definitely. So also, I mean, taking a step back, can you tell us a little bit about how Jones is distributed? Like, where can people find Jones Soda? How do they approach it? We touched a little bit on the domains, but I think in addition to the domains, like how would, if I was fiending for Jones right now, what would I do?
So we have most of our business is actually in brick and mortar and retail. Our top customer in the US is Kroger, and we're carried nationwide across Kroger. So if you were to try to look for us, that would probably be your best bet. We also are being taken by Walmart. We're in about 1,000 Walmart outlets. So not all of them, but some of them. And yeah, we're in lot. And then we go through, I don't remember how many, if you guys have had other beverage guests before, but we go through a lot of beverage distributors, which end up in retailers. So that's a little bit harder to control, I would say, and just a little bit more out of control, but we're constantly growing our business. We have some cool customers that we're about to get in that all will be revealed very shortly that I don't want to announce right now. Maybe by the time the podcast comes out, it'll come out too. And then we also obviously sell online as well. But our e-com business is actually a pretty small part of our overall portfolio, but we really have big aspirations to grow it because we believe, kind of like we were saying, that the value prop of customized soda and people wanting to do all these really special things, there is a value in it. And we have big aspirations in doing that. So I don't know, we're just getting started. I think when I speak for the e-com team specifically, I think they would say we're just getting started. And I feel that way too. So.
Heck yeah. I think being on the ground floor is an excellent place to be, and leaves unlimited potentiality too. So when you're thinking of like what marketing channel performs the best for you, or what marketing channel do you communicate the best experiences through? What do you feel impacts your client base the most and that you're investing in?
I mean, we do a lot of investment in paid social for like our retail business, probably like a lot of your other people you talk to, for a lot of reasons. I think it's just really affordable. And then I think even that game is changing a little, right? Because it's not just about Facebook, looking at TikTok. And we were just talking about how we want to do a lot of testing on that fertile ground as well. And then influencers, I think, has been a pretty big, important tool for us in terms of, obviously they reach out to their tribes, but also I think they are kind of the future of content and advertising and using UGC content. That is like where, we talked about before, but it really is a sweet spot of what the ads that appeal to us and what we like looking at. And so kind of thinking creatively, using a lot of UGC stuff, content for our ads is actually where we're headed as a company. And we've done quite a bit of, and we've had a lot of success there. And then email has been, particularly for e-com, such a fertile ground. And that's something that since I've joined, we've really doubled down on, and we've reaped a lot of benefits there with that, for sure.
Well,
those would be sort of the bigger pieces, and just trying to figure it out. I think the crazy thing, I assume this is what the podcast talks about all the time. The crazy thing in this day and age is you can never rest on your laurels. You're always trying to figure out and how to be malleable and adaptable, because there's always a new way to look at it, a new platform to look at, a new SaaS to provide you a new benefit, and just being ready to try and just give it a shot. I think is probably what helps separate, what makes us better. In fact, we're just always willing to try and just give it a shot.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I'm gonna have a few points here, so it's gonna get weird. But I think that the last thing that you mentioned is the testing, right? So testing into new markets, testing into new opportunities. When we were looking at your most recent campaign, the augmented reality campaign, we actually looked on Facebook, but the video looked like it was optimized for TikTok. So I think staying on that cutting edge and staying savvy in that way, super brilliant. Secondly, as we're an email and SMS platform for the e-commerce customer experience. I mean that the email as a value proposition for something that's like tried and true channel for any modern business, I think is something that we always love to hear, and we know deep in our hearts as well. And then thirdly, and I know we already touched on this also, but the influencer piece is fascinating to me because so I joined the industry about 8.5 years ago, the digital marketing industry. And the brands that we were working with then were kind of very, very scrappy about the way that they would find influencers, how they would make the program work, and everything was run into spreadsheets, etc. And then you fast forward to today, and there's technologies, there's enablement, there's the entire world is doing it. There's strict protocols, and obviously high revenue and demand on all sides of the equation. That said, you've been doing this for 25 years, right? So it's 25 years of actually working with influencers in a way. I mean, do you know a little bit about the evolution of that? It's obviously a core tenet of the organization. So how has it kind of like evolved over the years?
I mean, I think it's totally evolved. I mean, when I got to the organization about 2.5 years ago, it was a pretty narrow scope in that we would only work with skateboarders or, kind of finding the young version of Tony Hawk, and all that stuff. So we kind of started very narrowly in athletes. I still think he's doing well.
So
yeah. And so, but we would find like very young, like young children, like in that were talented skateboarders, like youngins, that are really, and there's a lot of them out there right now. And I think over time, what we realized is we're just kind of changing as a company and growing and all these things. And I think that's a really great niche, like action sports. As we were expanding, not only are there some there, but I think what we actually realized is because of our equity and what people know us for, that we didn't want to just narrow in there. We just started expanding slowly and slowly. And so what's interesting now is more and more people reach out to us. And so we had to find a way to organize. So we worked and used a sort of a SaaS platform to help us manage a lot of those things, to even help us prospect and just do better in that way. And then I think now we still do a lot of in-kind, I would say, but we are trying to find that sweet spot of paid and paying somebody, because unfortunately, budgets are not unlimited. So you have to be a little bit narrow in how you focus it. So even going there, I think is different. And then what I think is actually really, in terms of evolution, right? And you were asking about that. One area that since I've joined Jones that kind of blew up with COVID was looking at the craft cocktail space. And so that was like where I think, again, expanding from action sports, and then looking at like craft cocktails, how do we use Jones in that new space? That I think was all in conjunction and partnership with our team that helps, and our agency that helps us manage our influencers, and kind of expanding into that space there. And then just even looking now at finding people, just kind of changing between like nano and micro and all of that, like that's a whole evolution too. It's good, but hard. And there's a lot of information to digest. So I think you have to be, for us, what I think has worked is being very deliberate and thoughtful of where do we want to play? What do we really want? Because if you're not careful, you could like go down a crazy rabbit hole that you don't really have the time or energy for, or means for at the end of the day. So that's how I would talk about it, kind of in the broadest of strokes.
Well, and I think what you guys have done and why you're able to pivot so quickly and be so agile is because you've built trust and you've built awareness with not just the skateboarders, but, the people that, above that and beyond that. So I think that you guys have done a really great job of building that trust and establishing that awareness.
Thanks. And there's other initiatives. I would say this, just one different initiative. So this is different from craft cocktails, but when we launched Turkey and Gravy last fall, so when you think about people who you want to reach out to, when you have a very small quantity of turkey and gravy, that was a very different mindset. We're like, let's go big. And people who are like, just love to try crazy things, who are just really up for, it's just a very, to your point about being agile, you have to really go, okay, this is the initiative. This is what we're doing. And then we, to your point, are pretty ambitious in who we reach out for. Like, people have huge followings. There's no reason to not try, so that's kind of how we do it. And Turkey and Gravy was a lot of fun because then it did become kind of viral, in that what started happening is people would find it, try it, and then we would be like, if you try it, we'll give you a shirt. And like, it just started becoming to the point of being nimble. Like, just try it, tape the content, give you a shirt, post it on TikTok, and it started kind of becoming its own beast. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, start at the beginning of the Turkey and Gravy, because that's
amazing. A great story. And so we actually launched Turkey and Gravy something like 10 years ago. And it was one of the really big things that put us on the map, because it was so crazy and so out there. And so for a while it was dormant, but because last year was our 25th, we decided, let's bring it back. And just try to get some buzz. And boy, did we get the buzz at the end of the day. So we ended up launching a very, very small quantity, producing a very small amount. And it was actually very hard to find. I think we did 35,000 bottles between Canada and US. And then we held a very, very small amount for just influencers and such. We used a lot. We have a PR firm. So through our PR firm, we were able to get on, I think, Access Hollywood, and Mario Lopez drank some. This is now dating the nostalgia part of it. Drew Barrymore, we were featured on her show. Some really cool people for sure. So we got some traction there. And then we started posting more and more content. And then when people would find it, they're like, finding it, if I had a bottle, I would show it to you. What is it? And then they actually started trying it online and taping it. And then we realized, let's challenge. And we started calling it the Turkey Gravy Challenge. And it started becoming its own beast. But again, I think it's this idea of using, and I lead a team. So, seeing this behavior existing and jumping on it is how we seem to get the most traction on a lot of things. And yeah, it just kind of took on a life of its own in ways that are funny. People would like drink it. Families would drink it. Like, people would be like, it's so gross. And before I knew it, there were clips of lots of people drinking it and reacting in all kinds of ways. So, and we'll probably going to bring it back. The spoiler that we're probably bringing it back this year. So everyone hold on tight to that. Yeah.
Will there be t-shirts?
I don't know. We haven't thought about, there might be.
And for initiatives like that, is that something that you measure? Like, do you measure the impact that has on, revenue, or is it something that you just do so that that you're keeping your brand top of mind?
That whole thing, I can speak to. That's a good question. We kind of talked about it as a leadership team. There was not going to be, let's face it, there wasn't going to be huge repeat on Turkey and Gravy. So we went in very intentionally knowing that it was all about building buzz. And I would say the buzz far exceeded our expectations in terms of just all the momentum we were getting. Our CEO just did an earnings call and he talked about just how much momentum we got on that. And so that's how we thought about it. It kind of depends. To your point, we do usually go in with an objective, and we usually try to think about what makes sense. So each one is a little bit different. But that one, I would say, we knew we weren't going to get huge dollar sales, but it was more about just keeping it fun and fresh, for sure.
I think most of the people that we talk to, right, they have this little reserve of spend that they can have for having fun, right? And for just to do something to move the brand forward and not have to measure it. So I love that. Has that been your favorite campaign?
They're all, gosh, there's so many fun campaigns. I think some of my favorite campaigns actually happened before we did augmented reality. And that was so we'll go back in time to 2 years ago. Do you remember this time 2 years ago, March 2020?
Oh man.
How crazy that was. So I remember, and as an organization, we were making some pretty significant changes, and so I really had to, at the time, because we were making some changes, kind of went down deep. And this is actually the genesis of the labels and how we started. I remember our Canadian sales lead was like, oh, there's like rainbows and windows. You know what I'm talking about? And so what that translated to, again, 2 years ago, was a campaign that we called the Messages of Hope campaign. And so hearts and windows, chalk art, all of that. Aww. So we did our very first, and we launched it on cream soda, Andrew. So we started with that, and we did a campaign with Messages of Hope. And then that actually got some traction. And so we were like, we're onto something. And so we started then. We knew that the November 2020 election was going to be big. And so we very intentionally did it on cream soda because it's clear, as Andrew would know. And we decided to do something around encouraging everybody to vote, not picking a side. And so we did voter themed artwork in the back. And then we found a partner agency that had a QR code in the back where you could register to vote. And then we followed that up in December 2020 with an Unsung Heroes campaign. And I think with each of what I like about telling those stories is, Messages of Hope we just put out there. Vote, we would kind of put out there again, added the QR code element to kind of create engagement on the back end. And then with our Unsung Heroes, we started reaching out to our fan base and saying, if you know any Unsung Heroes, please send them, nominate them, submit it to our gallery. And so there was like some really, really cool stories that came in. One was like a woman, and she submitted her husband, who was a restaurant manager and was literally wearing all the hats, like keeping this restaurant afloat. And so he was featured in Canada. There's another place that was Navajo Nation, which was pretty impacted by COVID. And they ended up putting water wells because just having clean water in those communities was a huge thing. And so we featured them. And so we just started like featuring a lot of those things. And so with each one, they got a little bit better, a little more engaging with the community, a little more authentic. And I think most importantly, at that point in time in 2020, it feels like dog years in a way, like it was less than 2 years ago, but the world has just changed so much. I think there was this idea of hope and authenticity that I think I'm really proud to have led Jones through some of those things, because what little you can do as a brand, you should, so. Absolutely. That was like a long-winded answer, but those are all kind of an umbrella, like using our labels for good, I guess, like I think about it that way. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that absolutely those tug at the heartstrings. I think so 2 years ago, and I've just been getting my reminders, that all of these things happened 2 years ago. But my daughter is 6 now, and she was 4 then. And we were trying to like, how can we add some hope into the ecosystem? And so we actually did, like, we had a whole bunch of chalk out in front of our house, and we put up signs that were blank, and she would draw like a message every day. And then we had people that were just walking by our house actually do chalk art all over our sidewalk.
Awesome.
And I feel like what you did as an organization, that is exactly what was needed at that time. And it's incredible that you can be that nimble as an organization. And then also that impactful, it resonating at a time when a lot of hope was needed, because it was, it does seem like this weird dog-eared dream sort of scenario. But at that point in time, the fear was super high. And also people, it really upended everybody's lives all at once, for most of our recollections.
Yeah. Thank you. It was just, I look back on it and it's like, can't believe it's like only 2 years ago, but it was so fun, at the same time. And just to be that nimble, I think was actually pretty cool at the end of the day. didn't feel like it at the moment, but yeah.
I think that time gave us that, right? I think during that time, everyone kind of had a little bit of freedom to make some decisions, to maybe do things that they wouldn't have done before, whether it's professionally or personally. But what you guys did, I think, is really interesting because it also, you're creating awareness and you're creating buzz, but you're also creating a human element that I think is what people, now that we've been through this 2-ish years, people really, I think, are looking for that. And they're looking for brands that are human and brands that give back and that are engaged. And I think, if anything, that is just going to help propel you guys forward because you do have that human element, which I love.
Thanks.
Well, I think so far this has been absolutely lovely. As we're wrapping up a little bit here, Macy, what advice I feel like you're in a very difficult space also, I will say. I think CPG beverage is actually one of the most complex environments to work in. You mentioned some of the pains of shipping costs, which are paramount. Simultaneously, distribution all has gatekeepers, and there's merchandising elements to that. I mean, what would you advise to somebody else who is in your position in another organization or who's aspiring to head marketing for a CPG beverage brand that you think would be valuable for them?
That's a really good question. I'm like, I can't even answer that right now. Like, I just like, oh, and yeah, I think there's a lot to it. I think there's a couple things in terms of, I think this idea that we've talked about a lot in the past hours, the idea of being nimble and not being afraid to try things. I think that's probably one really, really big takeaway. I would say another thing I feel is, so we've kind of talked about that a lot. I think this other idea of knowing your truth and knowing who you are, what you stand for as a brand. I mean, the whole what I would say about this idea of the people's craft soda and that notion, that idea, as we were saying in the beginning, Andrew, like that was there from the beginning of who we are. And yet what I got to do through the campaigns we just talked about was really help people shift within the organization, like the mindset of like, yeah, Jones back in the day was much more counterculture and rebellious against some of the big beverage players that exist in this world, but we have our own stamp and we have this really unique point of view that really can help propel what you were saying, Dani, this authentic point of view of our consumers, and let's lean into that. And so I think the idea of the People's Craft Soda really kind of, what I always tell people and partners that we work with, we shifted through that experience from being kind of like anti-mainstream, rebellious brand, for lack of a better term, to being much more about you do you and kind of being your true authentic self, which is where people are now. It really is under this umbrella of self-expression, but it just looks a little different in 2020 lens, right? So I think this idea of really understanding what your brand stands for, what you really want to own in a way that is true. I think that's a big part of what we did great, what we've done great in the past 2.5 years. I think the third thing is, like, you cannot succeed as a business if not everybody's on board. And so I really think it's important. Like I'm in marketing, I don't lead supply chain, but I work very closely with our COO, who does have to work a lot with our sales partner, because if the marketing and sales aren't diving together, not going to happen. Have to work a lot with our finance people, because if we're not making money, it doesn't work. Like, like you can't have a marketing budget if you don't make money. So I think also this idea of that our CEO, Mark, he would say, is really getting people moved to the same direction and really aligning. And we debate a lot as a team. We don't always get it right, but we really debate, we hold hands, we move on, and we just get it done. And so I would say for people who are, because you're right, the beverage industry is hard for sure. We have to work together in order to succeed, especially because our company is a 25-person company. So even more paramount to really team up together in a good way. Because if we're not working together and we're not singing the same song, it's not going to work. Like, that's just the reality of the situation. So those would kind of be the 3 tips I would give to people for sure.
That was good. Macy.
Thank you.
I like it. So final question here. Does Joan still use the motto "Run with the little guy, create some change"?
We do reference it sometimes. We don't really like make it a huge motto, but people do reference it and consumers reference it like you just do. We'll reference it in our organic and our social media and stuff. So it comes up. We don't really declare it now. Now we're like all more like People's Craft Soda. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, People's Craft Soda is great too. No, I very much appreciate that, and I think a lot of your brand messaging truly resonates along the way. And Dani?
I was going to say, before we get off, I would love for you to talk to, before you wrap it up, just about new initiatives that you have. And we'll edit this all out, but you know what I mean? If we could talk some new initiatives. The one thing that we had talked about was the cannabis side of it. Just a blurb of that. I was trying to flag Andrew, but it wasn't helping. So let's just go back.
So we are very much pursuing the cannabis space. We have a new brand coming out. It's called Mary Jones.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. And we've got some soda coming out that will have THC in April. And our first market we're going out to market in is in California, in dispensaries and such. And there's not only that, there's going to be a whole line of products as well. So
well, lucky California.
Yeah.
Good. Well, we're excited to see that. Go ahead, Andrew.
No, I think that is ridiculously exciting. And also one of the things that being a smaller brand or being a more nimble brand, you're probably able to test into. I find it when I'm thinking of like the largest brands in the world in your category, I think that they would be terrified as all heck to get into that space. But you're doing it in a very interesting way, in a way that's going to garner a lot of press and attention, as I'm sure it already has. And then also in a category that is new and emerging, in which you could actually own the whole space because you already started owning the whole space from the get-go as you launch here in April. So super exciting. Your brand has always resonated with me as a consumer. I also like the way that you dictated kind of like the rebellious Rage Against the Machine sort of scenario, all the way into, you do you, which may or may not be my personal evolution. So massively appreciate your time today, Macy. We've enjoyed every minute of this, and wish you and Joan Soda the best success in the future. We'll provide the code for discounts that our listeners can get to at the end here. But otherwise, thank you so much, and we really, really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
So we have got something particularly exciting for you here at Sendlane. We've officially launched the 2022 Shopify Impact Series. So this is 9 unique videos teaching you how to make your marketing a repeat customer machine, surpass the competition, crush your goals, and win more e-commerce revenue. I am personally stoked for many of these partners. What we did was we gathered together some of the most innovative, interesting technologies and brands in the Shopify ecosystem in order to deliver the highest quality brief and powerful presentations possible. So we have ShipBob, we have Shopping Gives, Smile.io, GoVolo, Try Now, Plobal, Branzio, Sea Monster Studios, and I would be remiss if I did not mention Sendlane. So get access today at sendlane.com/Shopify-impact-series. That's sendlane.com/Shopify-impact-series. And I always move my hands like this when I'm doing forward slashes and dashes, just so that you know. The last thing that I wanted to say is that in addition, on all of the sites that Dani had previously mentioned, joansoda.com, myjones.com, drinklemoncoco.com or maryjonescannabis.com. I believe everybody will have access to 10% off of their order if you type in Hustle 10. So check out on any one of those sites and include Hustle 10. I highly recommend cream soda and orange cream soda and cream soda. They're delicious. And if you really want, you can get a root beer for Dani.
Yes. I'm on the root beer train for sure.